Live from the BDN Studios, it's Bang and Dang.
That's awesome.
If you don't like that, then
You ain't black.
Welcome to yet another episode of Battles of the American Civil War with your host, Bang and Dang. 3 more battles for you guys today. Actually, kind of the last battle of the night is kind of like a mix of 3 different battles. We got a bunch of gaps. That are being gapped here tonight. Got some West Virginias coming in, kind of a little fallout from Bull Run still, with Lee splitting his army between Maryland and I believe Kentucky or something like that. Tennessee or something. You got 2 offensives going at the moment, and this is going to be the episode before Antietam, the single bloodiest day of the war, all 4 years combined. Crazy. Starting off with we got Charleston, Munfordville, and South Mountain, which that one's going to have like 3 different, like Crampton's Gap and some other 2 other gaps that all part of the same thing. But start out in Charleston, West Virginia, September 13th, 1862, obviously in Kanawha County. During the summer of 1862, General William W. Loring's Department of Southwestern Virginia made plans to move into the Kanawha Valley of Western Virginia and take the city of Charleston after General Cox of the Union and Kanawha Division left the Kanawha Valley to help the Union Army in the battles at South Mountain coming up and Sharpsburg, otherwise known as Antietam, in Maryland. Colonel Joseph Andrew Jackson Lightburn was left in command of the Union forces that remained.
That's fucking stupid. These people and their names back then. Like, we're going to name you Joseph Lightburn. Your middle name's going to be Andrew Jackson.
Yeah.
After the 2nd president of the United States. Was he the 2nd? No, he was the 17th president of the United States. No, it's Andrew Johnson, right? Andrew Jackson. He was a president, right? Like the 3rd, 4th?
Andrew Jackson.
3rd or 4th, 5th?
Andrew Jackson came before. Andrew Johnson was the one that took over for Lincoln. Yeah, because Andrew Jackson was like a general in like the Mexican War back in the day or some shit. And then he was like the 8th president or something, right?
Yes. He was somewhere between 2 and 16. Actually,
not 2, because 2 would have been Adams.
And then Quincy Adams was like 5.
And then,
September 6, 1862. General Loring of the Confederate with 5,000 men left Narrows, Virginia, on a march toward Charleston. Confederate troops first encountered Union forces near Fayetteville on September 10th, driving them back toward Charleston. The pursuit continued all day on 11th of September, with the Federals splitting their forces near Gawley's Bridge on both sides of the Kanawha River. Confederates doing the same while in hot pursuit. Lieutenant Joel Abbott of the 8th Virginia Cavalry, from a point above the cliffs and down a long point on Cotton Hill and under General Loring's orders, destroys Gawley's Bridge and an ammo stockpile at the mouth of the Zalls Hollow. Okay. Lieutenant Abbott abandons his cannon on the side slope of Cotton Hill in a deep ravine due to the steepness of the terrain. Upon trying to return to the top of the hill, relic hunters still search for this cannon to this very day.
Somebody took it.
Yeah, it's fucking gone.
Just like it's buried. McCausland from the Confederates continued his pursuit on September 12th from about 5 miles below the Kanawha Falls to within 15 miles of Charleston, skirmishing with the Federals and battling fallen timber cut in their path along the way. They were battling the timber. Right. By late afternoon, September 13th, the battle for Charleston had begun and was over by 7:30.
Oh, shit.
When Loring's troop broke off the engagement at the Elk River, where the Union forces had destroyed the bridge once they had crossed.
Right. What can you do?
McCausland was able to find a ford to cross the Elk River near present-day Mink Shoals later in the day, but was only able to get his cavalry across.
Right.
Union forces withdrew across the Kanawha River overnight to Point Pleasant, leaving Charleston to be occupied by the Confederate forces.
Oh, look at that shit.
The occupation of Charleston by the Confederates lasted 6 weeks till October 28th, when Loring's troops began withdrawing under the threat of 12,000 Union soldiers, including several West Virginia infantry, cavalry, and artillery, which were approaching from the northeast counties. The city was occupied without opposition by the Union.
Well, there you go.
And that is the Battle of Charleston. Engagement.
That was pointless.
Right.
Okay, moving on to the Battle of South Mountain. It's also known in several early Southern accounts as the Battle of Boonesboro Gap. This was fought on the 14th September 1862 as part of the Maryland campaign. South Mountain is the name given to the continuation of the Blue Ridge Mountains after they enter Maryland. It is a natural obstacle that separates the Hagerstown Valley and the Cumberland Valley from the eastern part of the Maryland. After Lee invaded Maryland, a copy of an order known as Special Order 191 detailing troop movements that he wrote fell into the hands of McClellan. Oh, shit. They just fell. He's just jogging one day on his horse. And look at this.
Kind of.
From this, McClellan learned that Lee had split his forces, sending one wing under Major General Thomas J. Jackson to lay siege to Harper's Ferry.
Which obviously we had Harper's Ferry last week. So
the rest of Lee's army was posted at Boonesboro under command of Major General James Longstreet. Lee hoped that after taking Harper's Ferry to secure his rear, he could carry out an invasion of the Union, wrecking the Monocacy aqueduct before turning his attention to Baltimore, Philly, or Washington, D.C. itself.
To counter the Confederate invasion, McClellan led the Army of the Potomac west in an effort to force battle on the isolated parts of Lee's divided force. McClellan temporarily organized his army into 3 wings for the attacks on the passes. Major General Ambrose Burnside, the right wing, he commanded the 1st Corps and the 9th Corps. The right wing was sent to Turner's Gap and Fox's Gap in the north. Okay, the left wing, commanded by Major General William B. Franklin, consisted of his own 6th Corps and Major General Darius N. Couch's division of the 4th Corps, was sent to Crampton's Gap in the south. Center wing, which was the 2nd and 12th Corps under Major General Edwin Sumner, was in reserve.
All right.
From Boonesboro, Lee had sent a column under Major General James Longstreet northward to respond to a perceived threat from Pennsylvania.
Uh-oh.
After learning McClellan's intelligent coup, Lee quickly recalled Longstreet's forces to reinforce the South Mountain passes and thus attempt to block McClellan's advance. The day of the battle, the only Confederate force posted around Boonesboro was a 5 Brigade division under D.H. Hill.
Huh. Okay. Confederate force used the terrain to its maximum advantage with 3 regiments of Mahone's brigade and Munford's cavalrymen initially stationed at the eastern base of the mountain. The artillery halfway up its slope and Cobb's brigade entrenched at the summit.
All right.
From their vantage point on the mountain, they watched as Franklin's 6th Corps marched across the Middletown Valley towards them. When the Federals reached Burkittsville around noon, the Confederate artillery opened up.
Here we go, boys.
In Burkittsville, while under artillery fire, Franklin assembled his troops into 3 columns. 3 p.m. after a delay of nearly 3 hours, the 6th Corps finally began its assault.
Jeez.
The reason for the delay has never been revealed, but it would prove costly.
Of course it would.
The Union advance was slow and steady, supported by artillery.
Okay, slow and steady wins the race, they say, right? Their superior numbers quickly overwhelmed Mahone's regiments and the cavalry along with the artillery on the slopes of the mountain. The retreating Confederates were briefly rallied at the summit by General Cobb, but an oncoming charge by the 1st New Jersey Brigade was too much.
Oh.
Once the 6th Corps reached the summit, they drove the Confederates from their positions, inflicting heavy casualties in just 15 minutes of fighting. Confederate losses included an aide to Cobb, John Basil Lamar, and Jefferson M. Lamar, which was the younger brother of Lucius Q.C. Lamar.
Oh.
Sure. Both Lamars were related to Cobb's wife, the former Mary Ann Lamar. All right.
Fantastic.
Cool.
Well, after the Confederate line at the summit broke, the troops scattered in all directions into Pleasant Valley, and afterward were completely unable to fight more against the Federals. However, before their rout, they had held out for 3 hours, which, in concert with the delay of the 6th Corps getting to beginning the attack on Crampton's Gap, meant that it was after 6 p.m. when Franklin reassembled his men in Pleasant Valley, and it was too late to begin a second attack on McLaw's force on Maryland Heights. The following day, Harper's Ferry surrendered to the Confederates while Franklin sat encamped in Pleasant Valley. He was like, convinced he was outnumbered by McLaw's men by nearly 2-1.
That's because the Union generals were idiots and always think they're outnumbered. They're stupid. In total, the 6th Corps suffered 115 killed, 416 wounded, and 2 missing for a total of 533 casualties. The Confederates suffered 130 killed, 759 wounded for a total of 887 killed.
Dang.
Tactically, the Federals were successful in driving the Confederates from the Gap while inflicting heavy casualties, the first time any portion of Lee's army had been driven from the field up until this point in the war.
Oh, shit.
Confederate force was able to stall the Federal advance for 3 hours despite being outnumbered nearly 6-1.
Holy shit.
The delay was long enough to ensure the safety of McLaw's on Maryland Heights and capture Harper's Ferry that following morning.
Okay.
More
They did what needed to do.
Right. More significantly, after seizing Crampton's Gap, General Franklin failed to attack McLaw's and allowed Stonewall Jackson's corps to reunite with the main body to go to Sharpsville. And they did that without a fight, which set the stage for Antietam 3 days later.
Oh, shit. Oh, Stonewall. Confederate Major General D.H. Hill, deploying 5,000 men over more than 2 miles, defended both Turner's Gap and Fox's Gap. Burnside sent Hooker's 1st Corps to the right and Turner's Gap. The Union Iron Brigade attacked Colonel Alfred H. Colquitt's brigade along the National Road, driving it back up the mountain, but it refused to yield the pass.
You shall not pass.
Hooker positions 3 divisions opposite 2 peaks, located 1 mile north of the gap. The Alabama Brigade of Brigadier General Robert E. Rhodes was forced to withdraw because of its isolated position. Despite the arrival reinforcements for Brigadier General David R. Jones Division and Brigadier General Nathan G. Evans Brigade.
These are all Confederates.
Darkness and the difficult terrain prevented the complete collapse of Lee's line. So lucky.
Right.
At nightfall, the Federals held the high ground while the Confederates still held the gap. In the 1890s, the United States War Department placed 6 markers at the summit of Turner's Pass, also known as Turner's Gap, across from the old South Mountain Inn. They are on the north side of the alternate US 40, the old National Pike, the main highway west from Chesapeake Bay to the Ohio Valley during the Civil War.
All right, good for them, right? Well, just to the south, other elements of Hill's division, most notably Drayton's brigade, defended Fox's Gap against Reno's 9th Corps.
Oh.
A 9 a.m. attack by Union Brigadier General Jacob D. Cox's Kanawha Division secured much of the land south of the Gap. In the movement, Lieutenant Colonel Rutherford B. Hayes, that name ring a bell?
All right.
Of the 23rd Ohio led a flank attack and was seriously wounded. Cox pushed through the North Carolinians, positioned behind a stone wall at the Gap's crest, but he failed to capitalize on his gains. You got to get those gains, man. As his men were exhausted, allowing Confederate reinforcements to deploy in the Gap around the Daniel Wise farm.
Oh.
Reno sent forward the rest of his corps, but due to the timely arrival of Southern reinforcements under Brigadier General John Bell Hood, they failed to dislodge the defenders. Union Major General Jesse Reno and Confederate Brigadier General Samuel Garland Jr. were killed at Fox's Gap.
Oh, no shit.
Oh, Reno, huh? After Farmer Wise was paid $1 each to bury the Confederate soldiers who died behind the stone walls on or near his property, 60 bodies were dumped down his dry well.
Damn, that's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Jeez. Can you imagine that?
Dumping 60 bodies in a hole.
All right.
Probably still there.
All right. That's ridiculous.
I wonder if they ever got, I mean, it's a well.
All right. So many of these families never got their bodies of
Right.
their family members. So sad. Where are they at? Well,
Down this
I
well.
really don't want to tell you.
Where are they at? Well,
Oh, well.
no pun intended.
All right. Don't dig on that beach. No sandcastles. Fuck. By dusk, with Crampton's Gap lost and his position at Fox's and Turner's Gaps precarious, General Lee ordered his outnumbered forces to withdraw from South Mountain. McClellan was now in position to destroy Lee's army before it could concentrate. Union casualties, 28,000 engaged were 2,325, 443 killed, 1,807 wounded, and 75 missing. Confederate losses, 2,687, 325 killed, 1,560 wounded, and 800 missing. So more missing for the Confederates, but less moided.
It was only out of 18,000, though, so a bigger percentage.
Right. Damn, they're way outnumbered. The Battle of South Mountain was an important morale boost for the defeat-stricken Army of the Potomac.
Yeah, I'd say.
The New York World wrote that the battle turned back to the tide of rebel successes, and the strength of the rebels is hopelessly broken. Lee contemplated to the end of his Maryland campaign. However, McClellan's limited activity on 15 September after his victory at South Mountain condemned the garrison at Harper's Ferry to capture and gave Lee time to unite his scattered divisions at Sharpsburg for the Battle of Antietam on September 17th.
McClellan's a fucking
Yeah,
idiot.
he's a dumbass. He had him. And Lee's like, oh, wait a minute. We can still do this.
Yeah, he's like, wait a minute. This dude didn't move for a whole day after this battle? What a fucking moron.
The battlefield's up observed within the South Mountain State Park, Gathland State Park, and the Appalachian National Scenic Trail. Crampton's Gap Historic District and Turner's and Fox Gap's Historic District are listed on the National Register of Historic Places.
Good for them, huh? American Battlefield Trust and its battlefield land preservation partners have acquired and preserved 703 acres of the South Mountain Battlefield through November of 2021. This includes 188 acres of land at the center of where the fighting took place in 1862. Most of the preserved area sits west of Route 40, south of where the old Sharpsburg Road, now known as Reno Monument Road, meets Fox's Gap Road. 18 acres were originally acquired by the trust in 91, to which 8 acres were added in 95. More gains followed, as 136 acres were preserved in 2000, followed by 26 in 2004. Many of these were made by the assistance of the Maryland Environmental Trust. Cool.
Yeah.
January 2011, the South Mountain Battlefield gained National Heritage Landmark status, and in August of 2012, the state of Maryland declared its continued commitment to the preservation of these invaluable lands.
Okay.
Civil War Trust followed these developments with a campaign to save 14 additional acres. And the Civil War Trust followed up with another successful preservation in 2013 by saving 298 acres of the battlefield land at Turner's Gap.
Holy fuck! None of this stuff is
over 100 years later, and none of it's still saved.
Jeez. Wow. Well, nearby heritage areas in Frederick and Washington counties are still threatened by development. And South Mountain was listed as one of the most endangered battlefields in 2009 and 2010 editions of History Under Siege.
Hey, what is that? I have to get that, huh?
Plans to further develop the site of a natural gas plant just south of the Fox Gap remain a significant threat to the portions of the South Mountain battlefield. Fuck it, let them build it.
Mm. It's the problem with having battlefields on your land.
Right.
You know, you gotta, if you want to grow.
All right. Significant portion of the battlefield near the west side of the Moser Road and Reno Mountain Road intersection has not been preserved.
Ooh, better get on that. Two future presidents, Rutherford B. Hayes and William McKinley, fought at Fox's Gap during the Battle of South Mountain as part of the 23rd Ohio Infantry.
No shit.
Hayes was his commander, and McKinley a commissary sergeant.
Oh, huh.
Hayes would end the war as a brevet major general, and McKinley a brevet major, and they would be elected to the presidency 20 years apart. Hayes in 76 and McKinley in 96.
No shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
Didn't McKinley get poisoned or something?
Something like that. Crazy stuff. Well, moving on to the Battle of Munford, also known as the Battle of Green River.
Munfordville.
Right. It happened in Kentucky, in Munfordville, obviously, on the 26th, 1862.
September 14th to the 17th or something like that.
Oh, yeah, the battle didn't happen then, but let's move back a month or so. On the 26th of August, Braxton Bragg's army left Chattanooga, Tennessee, and marched north through Sparta, Tennessee.
Shit. This is Sparta.
And then to Glasgow,
Damn, what the hell is up with this?
Kentucky, pursued by Major General Don Carlos Buell's Union Army. Bragg approached Munfordville, a station on Louisville and Nashville Railroadville, and the location of 1,800-foot long railroad bridge crossing Green River.
1,800 foot long. That's pretty tall.
All right.
Or
Long.
wide, long. Yeah.
Mid-September, Colonel John T. Wilder commanded the Union garrison at Munfordville, which consisted of 3 regiments behind extensive fortifications.
Extensive. Wilder's force was first approached by Brigadier General James R. Chalmers, who marched on Munfordville from Cave City, Kentucky, without orders.
Oh, shit.
Chalmers had received an erroneous report from cavalry under Kirby Smith that federal force in Munfordville had not more than 1,800 men, entirely raw troops, and that they were fortifying their position. But the railroad and telegraph had been destroyed in the rear, cutting them off completely from all communication and reinforcement.
Uh-oh.
That's false, clearly. Upon arriving on September 14th, Chalmers demanded a surrender, which was rejected, and then proceeded to launch frontal assaults that were repulsed by the federal defenders. Chalmers' brigade suffered 288 casualties in the attack before retreating back to Cave City.
Surrender, no.
No, all right, we will. Braxton Bragg was angry at Chalmers for his unauthorized and injudicious assault,
Right.
but determined to force Munfordville's surrender nonetheless. He was like, we got to do it now.
Gotta do it. Bragg believed that leaving Munfordville intact would throw a gloom upon the whole army, but forcing his surrender would turn defeat into victory.
It's kind of how that works, yeah.
Thus, Bragg's army made a forced march of 35 miles the night of September 15th, 16th morning to Munfordville. Late September 16th, realizing that Buell's forces were near and not wishing to kill or injure innocent civilians, the Confederates since when? Right. The Confederates sent another demand for surrender.
Well, you got to realize we're at
Right.
we're in northern territory now, so
Right. Wilder entered enemy lines under a flag of truce. Oh, look at Wilder, little brave son of a bitch.
all right, flag of truth, you can't just shoot him down.
Right. And Confederate Major General Simon B. Buckner escorted him to view the Confederate strength to convince him resistance was futile. Wow. Realizing the odds he faced, 45 cannons, 25,000 plus infantry, Wilder agreed to surrender. He's like, you know what? On second thought,
25,000.
you know what? I was going to, but the last guy he's saying is such a fucking prick.
Right.
So,
he said surrender now.
Right. We're like, oh. He was like, what do you got? You'll find out. Well, I want to see. No. The formal ceremony took place the next day as the paroled Federals marched out of Munfordville with new uniforms. W.L. Trask, a Confederate soldier, said the Federals were well clothed, looked fat and sleek and clean and neat, and were in strange contrast to our own hungry, ragged, dirty looking ribs.
That's because those guys hadn't fought yet.
Right. So they let them all go, huh?
Of course, man. They always do. They don't have the means to support an extra 2,000 troops.
All right.
Despite the capture of over 4,000 Federals and stores of supplies at Munfordville, the victory did little for the Confederates other than slow them down.
Wait, the capture? They kept them?
Well, they paroled them.
Right.
Author Kenneth W. No said unless he, who was Bragg, intended to fight it out along the Green River, an idea that flickered only briefly under duress, Munfordville was a 3-day distraction the Confederate cause could ill afford. The incident is a good example of how Bragg had little overall vision for the campaign and instead simply reacted from event to event.
That's true. Yeah, Bragg wasn't that great.
He's just going with it. Well, he got a whole military base named after him.
It's true. 3 places in the National Register of Historic Places are related to this battle. The entire battlefield is listed on the National Register as the Battle of Munfordville site. This includes the Green River Bridge designed by Albert Fink and built by Louisville Nashville Railroad 1859. Fort Craig, a Union-built star-shaped wood.
Just trying to do Fort Craig.
Right, a Union-built star-shaped wood and earthen fort. A small cemetery at the northern edge of the battlefield and other buildings existing at the times.
Okay.
Right, could have been anything. The Colonel Robert A. Smith Monument near the river is part of the battlefield historic site and separately listed as well. A monument to Colonel Smith also exists in Dean Cemetery in his hometown of Edinburgh, Scotland.
A little Scottish guy fighting in the war. Huh?
Oh, the unknown Confederate soldier monument in Horse Cave marks the grave of a Louisiana soldier accidentally killed while clearing timber for the Confederate advance.
Oh, good for him, I guess.
Yeah, the Civil War Trust and his partners have acquired and preserved 135 acres of the Munfordville battlefield.
Yes, sir.
The
And
unknown Confederate soldier, huh?
all these battles, besides maybe the South Mountain one, for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is a short ass episode.
Mm-hmm.
So next week we'll be at the big one, Antietam.
Antietam, baby.
The bloodiest day of battle in the whole
Bloody.
Civil War.
Fucking bloody.
With I think it was like over 20,000 something troops altogether,
Crazy.
casualties. So
Crazy.
good stuff coming up there. Good battle, decent battle coming up. And approaching the end of 1862. Got 2 years left of this war. Not even, well, a little more than 2 years. Things are heating up, though. What do you say that?
1862?
You know, August or September.
1860. We got fucking almost 3 years.
2.5.
Maybe a little more.
War ends in March of 63 or 65. So,
But it really don't end until like August.
no.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, it ends the Lee surrenders. The Lee says it's granted 65 in March or April. I think it's April. April like 12th or 13th or something. But there's still fighting going on for.
No, only in the West where news hadn't reached nothing.
Right.
And they're still fighting the engines. That doesn't count, does it?
They're like, the war's over, Sans wins. Fucking 1865. It's 1873 right now.
Shit. Oh, yeah, that'll do it for us.
Black people are like, what?
Wait a minute.
You
I've been
motherfuckers.
free for fucking 8 years.
You son of a bitch. Hold on there, Tyrone. Hold on. We didn't know either.
Don't do nothing stupid.
We
We
didn't
would have
know
let you
either.
go.
Yeah, I'll pay you for your day's work.
And with that, we'll be back next week for Antietam. Go check out Outlaws and Gunslingers. Where this week's episode will be, I don't know. Because, well, I don't know. Maybe it'll be Virginia Tech shooting. If I do end up combining the 2 episodes for this week, but if not, it'll be something else. I don't know. Go back and look it up. Outlaws and Gunslingers, wherever you get your podcasts. Also, on this very Bang Dang network, we got This Week in Sports History, where you're listening to this now, as well as a couple other shows. Go check us out, Bang Dang Network. And if you guys want this show and all of our other shows ad-free, at least a couple days before they come out for the ad versions, then you can go to patreon.com/bang, $2 a month to get all of them. And maybe even a couple things we had to take out so people don't get mad at us. So yeah, patreon.com/bang dang, $2 a month. Go check us out there. We're back next week for Antietam. We're the month of Michiganders with Bang Dang.